everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today, on this day, I have with me a gentleman by the name of Dr. Calvin James. He is the author of children's books, novels, and the creator of music. Looking so forward to hearing about the creative work that he has put into this world. But first and foremost, Dr. James, as I always do, I like to take a moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I appreciate you carving out this space in your day for little old me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, as I mentioned in the opening, you're the author of children's books, and the one I'm going to open up with or start with today is The Colored Water Fountain. And if I could trouble you to share the storyline of the book because it's so unique. So could you share that with me, what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. So it's based in about I said the 1950s. And so these four spirits and God who created the earth look down on the earth and they're very upset with how men are treating each other. And so they decide to bring about another flood. But the flood waters don't destroy the earth, they renew it. They make all the human beings immortal children. So they won't grow up and learn prejudice and racism and all those things. And they make all the animals caretakers of the earth. Mm-hmm. But these two characters, Asher and Adeline, one day, they're walking in an old town and they see a sign above a water fountain that says colored. And they think, well, if I hit the button, a rainbow of colors will come out. That doesn't happen. So they're very confused about what it means. And they go on a quest to try to find out, what does a colored water fountain mean and what it stood for in the world that is no more.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So that's actually back in time, 1950s?
Yeah, that would be like a when they decide to remake the earth again.
Okay. Now, most people I talk to, most writers I talk to say that the particular niche of children's books is the most difficult one to write. What caused you to kind of travel down this pathway of writing children's books?
Well, I've always been interested in writing. I've been writing music for like 20 years, and I got to a point with that where I felt it wasn't as challenging as it used to be. And I think like writing stories and good stories that are well told is one of the most difficult creative tasks because there's certain principles you have to follow. And I initially tried to write a novel, and it was terrible because I didn't have the principles of storytelling down packed yet. So I said, I got to scale this back. And I said, I need to make smaller worlds and smaller stories with not so sprawling to master the craft of storytelling. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with this first idea, The Colored Water Fountain. And then I came up with, 8 others. So 9 children's books total. And then after that, I got to the point where I said, I think I feel good enough where I can progress back to trying to write novels. I think I have the principles down enough. But it's much, much harder to write a short story and convey ideas that would take 60,000 words, but get the same in about, 5,000. So writing short stories in this format is really challenging. So that's why I want to start here first and then work my way back to doing novels.
Okay. Now, before I continue on with the children's books, because I heard you say something, what mistakes were you making when it came to writing novels, if I can ask you? What did you realize?
So there's certain principles when it comes to storytelling, and just basic ones is like what seems is not what is. So to give a character a true character, they have to have contradiction. So what does that mean? So it's like a person who appears good under pressure, you find out that they're not, those type of things. One of the examples I always use is Michael Corleone from The Godfather, because it's such a good example. So one of the first things Michael Corleone says about himself in The Godfather is I'm not like my family. That's like the first thing he says at the beginning of the movie. But then pressure builds, and what happens? Well, then he pretends to be a gangster in front of the hospital to protect his father. Mm-hmm. And more pressure builds, and then what happens? Well, then he kills 2 people to protect his family.
True.
And then by the end of the film, you're like, oh, he's not like his family, he's worse. So the pressure builds and you find true character. So that's one of the things I wasn't doing. Okay. I wasn't giving my characters depth by giving them contradiction. And also there has to be stages where characters show their willpower to become who they're going to become. So each time a character takes an action to get what they want, they expect reality to react a certain way, but it doesn't. And this happens to us all the time in life. Let's say you try to get to work and you get ready to get in the car, you forgot your keys. I got to go back in and get your keys. And then you get in traffic, now you're in traffic and you're stuck. And you have to keep applying more and more willpower to get what you want. And in a story, there comes to a point where there's no going back. Like once they take this next step, they're on their way to becoming that new character. So those type of little principles and storytelling, I wasn't applying those because I didn't know them. And what I did was I bought this book, ironically called Story, by this amazing screenwriter, teacher named Robert McKee. And I've probably listened to that book 1,000 times. It's so helpful in helping people become masters of the craft. So once I got to that point, I said, okay, I'm going to apply these to children's books. And then once I felt comfortable there, I was like, all right, now I'm going to apply it to novels. It took a while, but it was worth it because I'm much better at it now. And it's a much more efficient way to write when you write within the principles of storytelling.
Love it. And that's a lesson in itself, because especially when you're talking to this younger generation, they want everything fast, but listening to you, it takes time. You have to put in the work. If you have a craft, it's just not going to happen overnight. Yeah, and you have to educate yourself. So I like that lesson there. But let me get back to the children's book, because I had another question I want to ask you about children's book, and they're usually illustrated. So for you personally, for your children's book, was it a process where you created the work, handed it to the illustrator, or did you guys work side by side?
So I learned from when I had my record company when I was in my early 20s, called Climax Records Incorporated, that if you work with other parties, like, you have to trust them. So for me, I wrote the stories and I found an illustrator that I trusted, great illustrator. Her name is Jordan Pizzuti. And I basically gave her a little bit of guidance, but I basically say, hey, do your thing, because she's that good. Because what you might find if you work with other creative people is that they might have some insights into your work that will make it better. And another piece of advice I would give to people is don't become emotionally attached to what you create, because once you create it, like, if you're going to create it and just create it for yourself, then be as emotionally attached as you want. But once you decide to get it out into the world, it's kind of no longer yours anymore. And so if you're not emotionally attached, when people make suggestions, you won't take them personally, and you'll see, oh, wait, this does make it better. The color water fountain is actually way longer than it is. And the illustrator said, can we cut like 2 of these characters? And I read it, I was like, oh, you're right. Let's just get rid of those. So it's a much better story. So that's why when I work with the illustrator, I'm just like, do your thing, because she might come up with something even better than I thought of. So
no, okay, great. And it's kind of like your baby, I guess.
Yes.
That has to be like, ooh, okay, well, you sure? So letting go, I think that might be a little emotional for some people. So, but it's good to hear that you have to learn how to go through that journey. Now, your children's books are part of a series. How many did you say there were?
9 total.
And the next one is out or will be out?
The next one's coming out this year. That one's called Christmas Sunrise. And that's about this grandmother who is reminiscing about all these old Christmases. And the first of the 3 stories is called Feeling Like Snow. And so she's telling her granddaughter about how, like, she was a kid and she would think it was going to snow, and she'd run outside and have her be bundled up in her coats and gloves, and then it would snow. And so, like, she's always hoping it would snow. And the next one's called One More Night to Wait, where she talks about the excitement of Christmas Eve. And the last story is called Christmas Sunrise, which is about just family coming together. And it's not really Christmas if you're not with the people you love.
So here in the family time, where do you pull your storylines from? Is it personal?
Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's inspirational from just things I see in the environment. The last children's book that will be released, which is called The Gray Clouds, actually came from my son. My son was the inspiration for the first one. But one day I was in the car and it was cloudy out, and he said to me, "Dad, are those clouds old?" I was like, "Why do you think those clouds are old?" And he said, "Because they're gray." And I was like, "Oh," and it sprang like a story, like, in my head instantaneously.
Okay, all righty. So he's already picking on us senior seasons people. Okay, all righty there. All righty. So how do you schedule your release dates? Because I think if I read correctly on your website, they're kind of far apart, or a decent little space apart. How do you schedule or time them?
Yeah, they're about a year apart, each one.
Okay.
And I have to coordinate with the illustrator because she's actually still in school. So part of it is coordinating with her, but also talking to my marketing advisor. Her name is Beth Werner, who's a great confidant and friend that I have that works with me. And it's still up in the air. There's going to be one released every year, but I'm also filling out, like, what people are looking for at the time. So I wanted to do Christmas Sunrise. I actually forgot I wrote Christmas Sunrise. Like, I was like, because I was going to bring out another one before. I was like, oh wait, I forgot about that one. So I put that one in the lineup. But it's just, it's part of it's based on what I'd like to come out, but also based on how people react to the books that have already come out. So based on Christmas Sunrise, I may bring out the green ones next, or I might bring out Long, Long Time. I think I'm leaning towards Long, Long Time more because of what that story is about. I think it's more prevalent at this time. That one's about a boy and his mother, and she's going through an illness, and she might pass away, and so that's what that story is about. And each refrain in the story, you know, says, "I want her with me a long, long time. I hope she's here a long, long time." So I'm thinking about bringing that one out before the green ones. So it just all depends. I just talk it over with my team and see which one makes more sense.
And it's good you have a team, because sometimes with authors, especially independent authors, you know, they try to do everything themselves. And the reality is we might be good at writing, but we might not be good at marketing or whatever. And so it's good that you've kind of said, oh, hey, I need a team here and get that out. Just wondering, what is the phrase? Are your children's books kids tested, mother approved? Have the
Yes.
kids? Oh, okay.
Yes,
The
yes,
kids.
yes. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's actually the first one won a Mom's Choice Award, which I was very proud to get that award. A Literary Titan Award, it's also won. So it's done very, very good. I'm very excited with how it's going.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And you said you have a son. He reads throughout. He proofreads them for you.
Yes, yes, and he takes him to daycare and says, you know, my dad wrote a book, so you know he's excited about it.
That's cute. That's adorable. Now, you also have some novels coming out that you mentioned.
Yes.
What's the plot line for those?
So the first one, which will be out in 2023, is called The White. And that one is about a mother and her husband and her son who are in Scotland, and there's a viral outbreak in Scotland. And that story is kind of the epitome of what people do under pressure.
Okay.
You know, one of the characters in the story does something very bad under pressure. And what she realizes is that, like, we all think we know ourselves, but we don't. And that's why every single person on the planet at one time or another says, I can't believe I did that. Or I can't believe I said that, because under pressure, we find out who we really are. So in this story, which is a story of survival and this mother and father trying to protect their son, they really find out who they are. And it's frightening for them. So that's what that story is about. The next story after that is called Black Code. And that is set in like a futuristic world. And there's these kids who find out that there's these things called ion chips, which are placed in everyone's head. And they realize they have a nefarious purpose because there's something going on with the chips. I don't want to get into detail of that one, give everything away, but I'm excited to write that one. And the next one I haven't put up on my website yet, and that one's called The Habitat. And that one I just recently came up with, and I'm going to be working on that shortly.
Okay, okay. So the novels, they're not out yet, or will be out?
No, they will be out. They will be out.
And how long do we have to wait?
So The White will come out in 2023.
Okay.
Black Code, I had a release date for that yet. But I'm coordinating a lot because in conjunction with this, I'm bringing out music as well. Some of the books have musical components. I don't tell people which books have that, because it's kind of surprise after you buy it that you can go to, you know, Calvin James Creates a YouTube page, and then you'll find that, oh wait, some of these books, they're not just kids books, they're actually songs that go with the words in the book, and they can, you know, watch it with their kids and stuff. So I have a lot of irons in the fire. So I gotta kind of spread the projects out.
Wow, amazing. Okay. So now that you mentioned the music, let me go to the music stuff. Because you had mentioned you did your first album, or what, I'm forgetting here, but how did you get involved with the music, or, you know, what instrument did you pick up first? How'd that all start?
So that started when I was first going to Temple University. I'm not a big fan of school, even though I have my doctorate. I did not enjoy school, and I dropped out.
At least he's honest. At least he's honest. Okay.
Yes, dropped out, started a record company, and started writing music with a good friend of mine from high school, Chris Hansen, and his brother Sean. And I did that for several years. Decided, okay, I need to go back to school. Got my doctorate, but I still, you know, once you're creative, it just kind of never goes away. And so now with my catalog of songs, which is over hundreds from, you know, the years I've been writing, I'm bringing out like songs every now and then. The first music video I did under Calvin James Creates, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, it's called Hurricane.
Yeah,
and that's the civil rights video. I did a silly Harry Potter video recently called You So Wizard, just, you know, just as something funny. Listless Christmas is another one. So I bring out the music in conjunction with the children's books and the novels.
Mhm. So I know you've had more time with the music, but now where you're at, is it more difficult to do the music or more difficult to do the writing?
Actually, like neither is difficult, because what I learned in my early 20s when I did Climax Records, the mistake that I made that I didn't plan. And if you do not plan, that's what makes it difficult. And it makes it difficult to sustain what you're trying to do. You have to set little goals for yourself. If you set a big goal that's far away, it makes it very, very hard to keep going, to stay persistent. And so the big key that I learned from that first company was you got to plan. And also, as you mentioned earlier, you got to find the people to do the things you can't do. I know I'm good at being creative. I'm okay at marketing, but I said I need someone to just help me with that, because the creative aspect and the business side of it is what I have to focus on. I can't illustrate. I need someone to do that. I can produce music, but I'm not great. I need someone to do that. So it's so important to build a team around you and plan. Because if you plan and you have setbacks, you can always fall back on, okay, it's okay. I planned for this. I can keep going. That's what I didn't do when I was younger. And so that's what I employ now to keep me going.
The lessons we learn over the years,
Yes.
So another pick your brain a little bit about giving some advice here. You are Dr. Calvin James, so that implies there's a career. But as we're listening to you, there's a whole bunch of creative stuff going on. So to the person who's looking at Dr. James and saying, I aspire to be like him, how do you find balance and do all this and package all this and make all this stuff happen? I mean, because it just seems like it's a lot.
Right. So the one benefit that I have is this is like a culmination of like 20 years of work, 20 years of writing the music, about 5 to 10 years of writing the kids' book. And I did most of that work before I was married. So that helped. I have more time. Now, with a family and my wife and my son, I just have to make sure I coordinate my time well. One of the things I do, I get up at 5 o'clock every day.
Wow.
So I'm up, go to the gym, come home. Before my wife and son gets up, I'm working on either music stuff, novels, or kids' book marketing. I'm planning all that out. I have a job that's relatively flexible. I'm a physical therapist that I go to people's homes, so I set my own schedule. So that's very helpful. And just, every waking moment, if I'm not with my family, I'm thinking about the next move with the business. And it sounds crazy and hectic, and it is. But that, in this situation, that's the only way it works. You kind of don't get a day off. So my advice is buckle up. It's hard.
No sugarcoating. Buckle up. It's hard. So we got novels, we got children's book, we got music. Any other fires in the iron we need to know?
Well, I also film music videos. So the civil rights video, Hurricane, Listless Christmas was like the first actual music video I filmed, where my wife and I filmed that together. The next one, some of the children's books will have music videos with them. So that's a part of it as well.
Okay. So your wife, is she part of the creative element as well? Because I just heard you mention that. So does she bring that to the table, or?
What I forced her to be. She wasn't happy with Listless Christmas. That took me like all night. Way back in 2000, I was 17. We filmed down at Lake Eola in Orlando, like all night to get those shots. And she was exhausted. But she's a trooper. She helps me out when she can.
She is like, this is not what I signed on for. I did not think marriage was going to be like this. Too precious, too precious. Teamwork makes the dream work. Yeah. Teamwork. Well, before I ask you my random question, I'm going to ask you another question because I guess maybe a futuristic question. Which novel was that? Black? That's in the future?
Black Code, yes.
Black Code, okay. So let me ask you a futuristic question. Let's say we're years into the future, and it's Christmas, and your son is over the house with your grandkids, right? And let's say at some point in time, everybody's kind of milling around, and you and him are maybe sitting in the living room, and he says to you, Pops, Dad, I am the man I am today because you instilled in me, you taught me blank. What would you hope he says?
Perseverance. Um, there are so many people who do not reach their dreams because they give up when they were really, really close.
Mm.
And there are plenty of days when I'm doing what I'm doing where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Should I keep going? You know, it's costing money. I'm getting older. You got to silence those doubts and just keep going. You never know who's listening. You never know who's watching. And you never know what impact what you're doing will have on other people. That's why I do what I do. I feel like my stories are something beneficial for others. And so if there's anything I can instill in him, I hope it's perseverance. Say, Dad, you taught me to keep going no matter what anyone says.
Good advice. Good advice. Good advice. Because sometimes you're so close, so close, and you just need to push forward. All right. Yes. Good advice. Well, Dr. James, I'm going to ask you my random question, and then I'm going to trouble you to tell us how we can pick up the books and stay tuned and stay connected so we can get the next few books. We got to wait we're in the middle of 2022. We got to wait a whole year.
No, I mean, I'll start advertising for Christmas Sunrise in September of this year.
Okay.
You'll be able to get that book this year.
Okay. Let's see what we have. What is the most useful thing your mom or dad has taught you?
Hard work.
Hard work.
Yeah. Both of them are very, very hard workers, and they instilled that in me. I couldn't have done anything I've done in my life, get my doctorate, go to school, do this business, without their example of just working hard.
Awesome. Good. I love it. Well, sir, tell us how we pick up the book, how we stay connected with you for the future books. Just give us the lowdown.
Yeah. So you can pick up the books at basically any online major retailer, Barnes and Nobles. Amazon's probably the fastest way to get it. Future books will all be sold through Amazon. You can reach me through any of my social media, my Twitter feed, which is Cal James Creates, my Facebook page, Calvin James Creates, my YouTube channel, Calvin James Creates. Any of those ways you can stay in contact with me and subscribe and keep up to date on stuff. And like I said, a book will be coming out, every year for the next 9 years. So if you just type in Calvin James Creates into Google, probably the first thing that comes up. So
awesome. So we know Calvin James creates for his son. So hopefully Calvin James creates for a future son or daughter sometime in the future.
Maybe. Possibly.
Hint, push. Maybe. All righty, dear. Well, thank you for making time for me today. I've enjoyed it, and just kudos to you and what you're doing, and keep on doing it. And I'm just tickled. I'm just tickled. So
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.